At some point, everyone watching a horror movie has the same thought. Just call the cops and shoot the killer. Or do it yourself, it's not that hard. A gun doesn't trip over its own feet, neither does it split up from the group. You point it at something and that something stops being a problem. Which got me thinking. I've got a Glock-18 and one 33 round magazine. Do I have a license? Don't ask me that. Am I any more competent than people in horror movies? Don't ask me that either. What you should ask me is what we're doing next. I'm your host, Brayden, and I've got 10 of the most famous killers lined up. A few of these are over before they start, a couple of them are more complicated than I expected, and there's one near the end that I'm still not fully settled on. Quick rules: fresh 33 round magazine per villain, 9mm, no full auto. We're not animals. The win condition is simple: we walk away alive. Starting easy with Ghostface. The central gimmick of the Scream franchise is that the killer could be anyone. Your boyfriend, your best friend, even the guy she told you not to worry about. The mask changes hands across 6 films. Multiple people have worn it, which means that underneath the costume, every single Ghostface killer in the history of the franchise has been a completely ordinary human being. No supernatural element, just a person who bought a Halloween costume and made some very questionable life choices. The reason Ghostface is terrifying is the knife. Fast, quiet, gets close before you even know what's happening. Except maybe in Scary Movie, where he is not that scary. He's terrible at hiding.
You're behind the couch.
What? How do you know that?
I can see your feet.
And to be honest, he's kind of a really cool guy. Solely for that reason, wouldn't shoot him. But back to the real Scream movie, where the victims are caught off guard, usually alone and usually in the dark. Sidney Prescott has survived 6 of these movies because she keeps ending up in situations where she can barely fight back. Change the situation, you're not alone, you're not surprised, and you're not working with a kitchen knife. Ghostface is a person in a party store costume standing in front of a Glock-18. The costume doesn't stop bullets, neither does the person underneath it. In Scream 2, one of the killers took 16 shots before going down. 16. That's because panicking college students with pistols are not known for their shot placement. We are not panicking college students. We are white knights making a YouTube video about horror movies, which makes us inherently much more competent by any means. One well-placed round ends this before the dramatic music even starts. Verdict: easy. Next up is someone who took a considerably more industrial approach to the whole problem. John Kramer is a former civil engineer from Ohio who was diagnosed with terminal brain cancer, attempted suicide, survived, and decided the correct response to that whole experience was to build increasingly elaborate rooms full of blades and whatever and start kidnapping people. The traps are the impressive part. Reverse bear traps, rooms that fill with razor wire, a device that requires you to reach into a blender. Whoever is doing the production design on these things deserves an award and, maybe a police report. Truly committed work. The thing is, none of that matters if you shoot him in the parking lot before any of it gets started. John Kramer is in his early 50s when he dies in Saw 3. At that point, he has a brain tumor and colon cancer and can barely get out of bed. The entire Jigsaw mythology, the tapes, the pig masks, the philosophy about appreciating life, it all runs on the assumption that you will follow the rules of the game. You wake up in a locked room, you solve the puzzle, you do not have a Glock-18. He sends other people to do the actual field work because he physically cannot do it himself. That's the whole franchise. A dying man who built the system specifically because he knew he couldn't be the one doing the running around. And take away the system, walk in with a gun, John Kramer is a frail, terminally ill man who cannot run and has not been able to run for several films. Verdict: easy. The traps are terrifying, the man behind them is not. The real question you should be asking yourself is whether shooting this man is within the best of your interests. He's got a reason for killing, though it is inconsistent. I'll let you decide that for yourself. Annie Wilkes went in a very different direction. Annie Wilkes is a nurse. She lives alone on a farm in rural Colorado. She collects ceramic pigs. These are not the details of a horror villain. These are the details of someone's neighbor. The reason she works as a horror villain is that Paul Sheldon, her victim, has 2 broken legs and is completely dependent on her for food, medication, and the general continuation of his life. She controls everything. He controls nothing. The horror of Misery is not that Annie Wilkes is particularly dangerous. It's that Paul Sheldon is particularly stuck. Remove the broken legs from the equation and this movie is 20 minutes long. She knocks on a car window, you roll it down, you shoot her. No hobbling scene, no typewriter to the head. Just a very short film about a man who didn't need rescuing because he could walk the whole time. The sledgehammer is terrifying in context. The context is everything. In a fair fight, or what passes for a fair fight when one party has a Glock-18, Annie Wilkes doesn't have much going for her. She's not fast, she doesn't heal, she has no powers beyond an intimate knowledge of Paul Sheldon's bibliography and an ability to be extremely unpleasant. One round, the most feared woman in Stephen King's bibliography is only scary because her victim couldn't stand up. Verdict? Easy. Stephen King does have someone in his arsenal which will be a lot harder to face. We'll get there shortly. Next up is the last easy target. Jack Torrance is a writer. He has a drinking problem in a complicated relationship with his family, and when he takes a winter caretaker job at a remote Colorado hotel, the hotel gradually drives him insane and he tries to murder everyone with an axe. To his defense, the Overlook Hotel is supernatural. The ghosts are real, the visions are real. The hotel has been doing this to caretakers for decades. None of that is in question. Jack, however, is just the delivery mechanism. Strip away the hotel and the ghosts and the decades of accumulated evil, and what you have is a man with an axe who got progressively more unhinged over the winter. He's possessed, yes, but he's possessed into a human body that weighs the same as any human body and responds to 9mm rounds exactly the same way. He also froze to death in a hedge maze. This is worth sitting with for a moment. The most terrifying villain in Stanley Kubrick's filmography was defeated by weather and a 5-year-old who walked backwards. Is one of cinema's great horror moments, and it ends with the man getting lost outside. You don't need to wait for a cold front. You have a Glock-18. Jack Torrance is coming down the hallway with an axe, which means he's moving slowly, through a corridor in a straight line directly towards you. This is not a complicated situation. Don't bring an axe into a gunfight. Verdict, easy. But the next one is a significant step up in the physical department. He's a large man, very large. He wears a mask made of human skin, which is kind of horrible. And he carries around a running chainsaw, which is genuinely dangerous. Unless he runs out of gas. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre came out in 1974 and people were walking out of cinemas. The chainsaw alone became one of the most iconic images in horror history. Here's the thing about a chainsaw though. It's extremely loud, which means you can hear him coming. It's heavy and it's awkward to maneuver, which means he's slower than he looks. And it requires you to be close enough to use it, which is exactly the range you want to be at when someone has a Glock-18 pointed at you. Leatherface has been hit by a truck. He's been shot, he's taken serious damage across multiple films and kept going, which is impressive. But also worth noting, he kept going as a large human who had been seriously damaged, not as a supernatural entity who couldn't be stopped. The difference matters. He's not Michael Myers. We'll get to that guy later. Leatherface is just a very big, very relentless man, and very big, very relentless men still have the same fundamental vulnerabilities as everyone else. You know, you're gonna need more than one round here though. He's large enough and determined enough that you'd want to be thorough, but thorough is well within what a 33-round magazine can handle. Verdict, beatable. Takes a bit more commitment than the previous 3, but not a close call. It gets a lot closer once you start shooting kids. No, not those kind of kids. Chucky is the opposite problem entirely. The previous villains were either easy targets or large targets. Chucky is a 29-inch doll moving at ankle height with the physical strength of a full-grown man, and absolutely no hesitation where he's aiming. The gun works on Chucky. That's not the issue. He's been killed by gunshots in the original film. He has a heart, he has lungs, the body is penetrable. Ballistically, this is fine. The problem is geometry. You are standing upright holding a weapon designed for human-sized threats. Chucky is at your feet. To shoot him accurately, you need to aim almost straight down at a target roughly the size of a large grapefruit that is actively moving and trying to stab your ankles. The vital area you're trying to hit is maybe 4 inches across. On a doll that won't stop moving. Meanwhile, he has the grip strength of a grown man, which means if he gets a hold of the gun before you get the angle right, you have a new problem. Child's Play. Nobody manages to deal with Chucky efficiently because everyone panics the moment a toy starts talking. I mean, that's understandable. A talking toy that wants to kill you it's alarming. But panic is the enemy of shot placement, and shot placement is the only thing that matters here. Stay calm, create distance, get low, aim carefully. The Glock-18 solves this. It just, solves it in a way that looks completely undignified. Verdict? Beatable. You'll feel stupid doing it, or at least I will. I don't know about you guys, you might be psychos, but that's the last one you're gonna feel good about. The first 5 were human beings: a nurse, a writer, a dying man, a person in a costume, a large man with a chainsaw, and a doll with an attitude problem. The gun handled all of them because the gun was designed exactly for this: stopping things that are made of meat and don't want to be stopped. What comes next is different. These are things that have survived situations a gun doesn't have an opinion about, and in one case, a gun can't even reach the problem. The easy part of this list is over. Michael Myers is where this stops being funny. In the original Halloween, Dr. Sam Loomis, Michael's psychiatrist, the man who spent 15 years studying him, shoots Michael 6 times at close range with a .357 Magnum. Michael falls off a second-story balcony. Loomis looks over the railing. The body is gone. That's the 1978 film, first one, before any sequels, retcons, or the franchise had any reason to overcomplicate things. 6 shots from a man who knew exactly what he was shooting at, and it didn't finish the job. Here's where it gets complicated. John Carpenter never gave a definitive answer on what Michael Myers actually is. In the original script, he's only listed as the shape. Carpenter's position was essentially that Michael is the concept of evil made physical, and committing to a specific explanation would make him less scary, not more. The franchise has since not respected that decision. Across 13 films, you get the Cult of Thorn giving him a druid curse, Rob Zombie's version making him a purely human product of a terrible childhood, and the 2018 trilogy presenting him as ambiguously unstoppable without ever explaining why. Every timeline contradicts the last one. What this means practically is that you genuinely don't know how many rounds it takes. 6 wasn't enough for Loomis. He's walked away from multiple stabbings, fires, and a considerable amount of structural damage across multiple films. You put a Glock-18 on him and you have no idea if it ends there, or if you're about to find out firsthand why the franchise has been running for 45 years. I mean, the gun probably works. In some versions of the canon, it definitely works. In others, you're about to empty a magazine and still have a problem. Verdict? Unknown. Jason Voorhees, at least, has the decency to be straightforward about it. Though, before we get there are technically 2 Jasons, and the franchise swapped them out so quietly that most people didn't even notice. In the first 4 Friday the 13th films, Jason is human, severely deformed, relentless, and extremely difficult to stop, but human. A gun with enough rounds and decent placement ends it. Unpleasant, but doable. In part 1, he doesn't even show up as the killer. That's his mother. Jason as the main villain starts in part 2, and for 3 films, he's just a large, determined man in a hockey mask living in the woods. Then, in Friday the 13th, part 6, Jason Lives in 1986, Tommy Jarvis accidentally resurrects Jason's corpse with a lightning strike while trying to destroy the body. And from that point forward, Jason is explicitly undead. No pain receptors, survives fire, electrocution, and being blown apart across the following 6 films. Jason X sends him to space. He fights Freddy Krueger. The man is not working within normal physical constraints anymore. Does have one weakness though. Teenagers taking their tops off who love premarital sex. Yes, that is actually in the Jason X movie. You should watch it. The version of Jason that lives in the cultural imagination, hockey mask, machete, unstoppable force of nature, that's the post-1986 version. That's the zombie. And 9mm rounds on a zombie who has survived being blown up on a spaceship are not going to change the outcome. You can shoot Jason, you can empty the entire magazine into him, he will continue walking towards you at the same pace he was walking before, which, to his credit, has always been extremely slow. Verdict? The gun does nothing, but running does, so I guess in some way we're beating him. At least Jason is in the same room as you. Freddy Krueger is not in the same room as you. Freddy Krueger is not in the same building, the same street, or the same plane of physical reality as you. He exists in the dream world where he is invulnerable, omnipotent, and entirely in control of everything that happens. You exist in the waking world where you have a Glock-18 that cannot reach him. The gun is useless because Freddy is not there. Now, technically, there is a way to make the gun relevant. You could fall asleep, enter the dream world where Freddy has unlimited power over reality and you have none, survive long enough to get a hold of him, drag him physically back into the waking world, and then shoot him. In the real world, he has normal human vulnerabilities and can be killed. That is the plan. That is your best option. The plan requires you to voluntarily enter the domain where he is a god and you are a person who is asleep. The plan requires you to survive that. The plan requires you to then successfully pull a supernatural entity across the boundary between dream and reality while he is actively trying to kill you. After all of that, yeah, the gun works great. Verdict: the Glock-18 is fine. Getting it anywhere near Freddy Krueger is the problem, and that problem has nothing to do with the gun. Pennywise is last, and it's a different kind of impossible. Every other villain on this list had a physical problem problem. Too huge, too human, too undead, wrong plane of reality. These are problems you can at least categorize. With Pennywise, the problem is you. It is an ancient cosmic entity that has existed for millions of years and feeds primarily on fear. It shapeshifts into whatever frightens you most, like talking to women. It manipulates reality. It has been preying on the town of Derry, Maine since before the country existed. And here's the specific detail that makes the gun irrelevant. Physical attacks on Pennywise only work if the person making them has no fear and genuinely believes the attack will land. You just have to believe. Aww. In It Chapter 2, the Losers Club doesn't defeat Pennywise with weapons. They mock him, they diminish him, they stand in front of an ancient shape-shifting horror and refuse to be afraid of it, and he collapses because fear is the only thing that makes him real in the way that matters. The gun works on things that physics apply to. Pennywise works on a different system entirely. So yes, bullets are physical objects and they travel at the correct velocity and they would technically make contact. But if you're standing in front of something that has taken the shape of your worst fear and you feel anything other than complete calm certainty, the gun achieves nothing. You don't need better ammunition, you need to be the kind of person who can look at a billion-year-old shape-shifting entity and genuinely not find that shit impressive. Verdict? The gun is not the problem, you are. 6 out of 10 definitively. Ghostface, Jigsaw, Annie Wilkes, Jack Torrance, Leatherface, Chucky, all handled. The gun worked exactly as advertised on every villain who had the decency to be made of meat. Michael Myers is a maybe, which is the most honest thing the Halloween franchise has ever produced. Jason and Freddy are no, for completely different reasons, and Pennywise isn't even a gun problem. At the start of this, I said everyone watching a horror movie has had the same thought. Just shoot him! And it turns out that's more right than wrong. But right now you're sitting there thinking, hey, that's not right! And to that I say, I hear you. Comment down below which one would have played out differently or what villains haven't been covered yet that should be covered. One I know for a fact is not beatable is the Goblin, which Chase will tell you all about.